Thank you for joining today's presentation, Putting It All Together, Supporting Your Career Path with NIH Funding. My name is Toria Donaldson, your moderator for this exciting session. I'm in the Division of Biomedical Research Workforce, located within the Office of Extramural Research at NIH. I just got them out. Okay, so the polls should be posted now, so you should see them. Okay, so I'm pleased to introduce you to our expert panel today, Kenneth Gibbs, Chief Undergraduate and Predoctoral Cross-Disciplinary Training Branch at NIGMS, Lauren Ulrich, Program Director, Office of Programs to Enhance Neuroscience Workforce Diversity at NINDS, Ashley Van Veer, Director, Office of Research and Training and Career Development at NIMH. So today I'm going to quickly highlight the outline that the presenters will showing. So the presenters will be covering a short overview on navigating NIH, sharing some NIH-wide resources, and then we will open to Q&A from the audience. Now I want to pass the session over to Kenneth Gibbs to start with some insights for applying to grants.
Thank you so much. We will start with the take-home messages, which are contact your program officers and don't self-eliminate. Go for it. Getting NIH funding can be a challenge, but you have to apply and apply again to make sure that there are a lot of opportunities and that you can take advantage of them. And so a few overarching comments, no matter what type of mechanism. I know the poll results were there briefly. I saw we had a good number of postdocs and early stage investigators, as well as those who both applied and received. Oh, there we go, they're back. So we had a good number of postdocs and early stage investigators, as well as a number of you who've never applied or in the process of applying, or have applied and not been successful yet. So I think no matter where you are, it's important to understand the mechanism that you're applying for. NIH has a number of different types of mechanisms. There are research grants and different flavors of research grants, training and career development awards. So it's always important to read the entire funding opportunity announcement, or the FOA. The purpose tells you why we're putting out that solicitation. There are also sometimes guide notices at the top, which can give you additional information, maybe like information about a webinar, or importantly, information about a change in the FOA that you need to be attuned to while you're applying, and especially the review criteria. And it's important to follow all the instructions. Program officers like myself and my colleagues are your resources, right? And it's really, our job, and we're here because we love science and we love helping our fellow colleagues in the extramural community navigate the process. It's important to contact program officers early in the process. When you contact, it's really best to send a bio sketch and a specific aims page, because then we can help you by assessing whether or not you're potentially responsive to the funding announcement, or pass you on to colleagues who might be better suited to meet your area of expertise. It also helps us to determine whether you are eligible and meet the responsiveness for that funding opportunity announcement and within the context of the institute or center that's funding it. In addition, it's important to reach out after you receive your summary statements to discuss next steps. And that can be the case whether you got a perfect 10 or we're not discussed. I know in talking to applicants, sometimes there's not an awareness that you can reach out to us, but our job is to be helpful. And so please reach out, because our job is to be your resource. And again, as we said before, you have to go for it. Don't self-eliminate. Submit, and then submit again if you have to, because you have to submit to be able to get the award. Let's see. And so how do you find program officers? One great way is to look at the NIH Reporter tool and the Matchmaker feature. That allows you to put in your specific aims page and your research topic, and it gives you potential, again, the word being potential, program officials, institutes and centers, and review panels that are best aligned for your research. And again, it's Matchmaker, so it's not a perfect system, but it gets you in the ballpark of people who might be best able to handle your area of research. Finally, no matter what mechanism you're applying for, it's important to think about, these grant applications undergo peer review. And so what do reviewers look for? Really, they look for compelling research. We are a science funding agency. And so that really is saying is a significant and important problem that will have impact, looking for exciting ideas. In the context of research grants, almost always reviewers are looking for clear hypotheses with alternatives proposed and paying attention to the factors that we globally call rigor, statistical analysis, relevant biological variables, etc. What I often say to applicants is that the best research proposals are ones such that even if your hypothesis is incorrect, you have so rigorously tested the mechanism that you have been able to advance our knowledge about a fundamental process of interest to the institute or center that's funding. It's also important to make sure there's an appropriate fit to the mechanism. Make sure you have realistic aims and timelines, and don't be overly ambitious. I work a lot with training grants and career development awards. One very prominent one is the K99 R00, which provides the last 2 years of funding for your postdoc and the first 3 years as an independent investigator. It's great to have a career spanning vision, but you don't want to put 30 years worth of work into a 5-year grant. And so you have to make sure that there's a realistic aim and timeline. And specifically for those of you who are postdocs or grad students thinking about F or K awards, it's important to not just have good research, but to justify the need for additional training and career development. Often like I'm learning a new system, some new techniques, some new skills, and to make sure you have the appropriate mentors, collaborators, and consultants. Finally, grant writing is important. Grantsmanship is not a review criteria, but it's important that you are able to write your ideas clearly and that they are easily understood by scientists from a variety of disciplinary backgrounds. Oftentimes, you'll have people who know your field exactly, but you'll also have reviewers who are generally knowledgeable about that area of science, and some, depending on, especially if it's a training panel, might be there to comment on the training aspects of it. But you need to make sure that it is easily understood by scientists from a wide variety of disciplines. And often a concise and well-written application helps you to do that. Now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Lauren Ulrich from NINDS.
Thank you, Dr. Gibbs. All right. So we're trying to get to the right slide. Here we go. So one of the resources that I want to direct you to is the researchtraining.nih.gov. And this is really your one-stop shop to learn about anything training related. So I know we had quite a few graduate students, postdocs, and even there are opportunities for early career scientists in this portfolio. So there's information across the top where you can sort by career path or by program type. You can even see a matrix of which institutes or centers support which activity codes in case you're confused. I know it's a little bit of an alphabet soup. You can also say, oh, hey, I'm a postdoc. What opportunities are available for me? So that'll be the colored bar across the top. Then on the right, if you say, you know what, I know that I'm interested in fellowships, you can look only at fellowships and sort that way instead. And then finally, there are some really nice infographics that talk about the various types of research career pathways that there are. So a physician scientist, a veterinarian, dentist, a research scientist, whatever flavor makes most sense to you. There's sort of shows you as you advance through your career, what are the different opportunities available. Another key term that we want you to be aware of is the early stage investigator and the new investigator designations. So the early stage investigator, ESI, is someone who has not received an R01 or equivalent, and the equivalent awards are down in the bottom right corner, and has completed their terminal research degree or their clinical training within the past 10 years. So if this fits you, then you should check your ERA Commons profile and make sure that it says early stage investigator on it, because this designation means you'll get special attention at review And then you may also get potentially increased or better pay line. Depending on the IC, they sort of treat these early stage investigators slightly differently, but you'll definitely get a second look. There are also extensions available for this 10-year window for childbirth and medical leave and various other situations. So if you go to the ESI webpage, there will be information about how to submit for an extension. And these are reviewed by a committee. The other flavor is new investigator. So this is anyone who hasn't received an R01 or equivalent. And some institutes and centers and some funding opportunity announcements have special designations for new investigators as well. And I also wanted to make sure that you're aware of some pre and post-award opportunities. So first, continuing this vein of flexibilities, we talked about the eligibility extensions for ESI status, but there are also eligibility extensions for the K99 R00 that Dr. Gibbs mentioned earlier. And that once you have the award, there are built-in policies around leaves of absences and part-time training or temporary reduction of effort on Fs and Ks. So this is something that I highly encourage you, both before you apply and after you have the award, to reach out to your program director and discuss, what policies are available, what flexibilities are available, because we will try, within reason, within the policies that exist, to figure out a way to accommodate you. After you get the award, there are also various flavors of supplements. So these are additional funds given to an existing NIH award that are used to achieve different ends. So the first one I'll talk about is the supplements to promote research continuity and retention. So this is for any K awards or a first-time R01 awardee. If you have some kind of critical life event like childbirth, like a disability, taking care of an immediate family member with an illness, you can apply for a supplement to provide up to $50,000 to help you maintain your research progress while this event is going on. And normally this might take the form of hiring a tech to continue the research while you're not able to be there, but there's lots of different ways to approach this. The other opportunities that you should be aware of is the Diversity Supplement Program, which provides funds to existing NIH grants to support training in those labs. And this can support everyone from a high school student all the way to a junior faculty member. So it's a very flexible program, and every single NIH institute and center participates in it. Additionally, we have the re-entry and reintegration supplements, and these are available to either help someone re-enter science after an extended absence, or if someone is experiencing some kind of harassment in their lab and they need to quickly switch to a different lab, these supplements are available to accomplish those. And so now I will turn it over to Dr. Ashley Vantvier.
You're muted, Ashley.
Was double muted. Sorry, everyone. You think after all this time I would remember that I have two mute buttons. So I have a few slides of a few more resources, but I want to encourage everyone to be putting their questions in the Q&A feature, because we'll be wrapping up the formal part soon and we have lots of time for questions. So please send away. So first, I'm going to talk about briefly the Early Career Reviewer Program. And this program is really one of the best ways to build your grant writing skills by serving as a reviewer on the NIH panel. So the Center for Scientific Review has this program that they developed to train scientists without prior review experience so that they can become effective reviewers and help emerging researchers advance their careers by exposing them to peer review and enriching the existing pool of NIH reviewers. So this, the website is below, and I will put it in the chat as well. But I encourage you, if you're interested, to look into that program. It's focused on individuals that are already at the faculty level, so postdocs or below are not eligible. But if you have not reviewed grants for NIH and you're at the faculty level, please do look at this program. The second opportunity, let me just put that one in the chat for everyone. And then I'm going to put this one in there too while I'm at it, is the NIH loan repayment program. So this program, you sign basically a commitment with NIH to do 2 years of research in exchange for getting up to $50,000 per year of your student loans repaid. And there are 6 different programs that are available. So if you have student loan debt and you're doing research, then you should definitely look into the LRP program. The applications are due once per year, generally in November. And there's lots of resources on the website that I sent. And you don't need to have an NIH grant to be eligible, but it is for US citizens and permanent residents only. And then the final resource that I'll tell you about are these 2 podcasts, which have a wealth of information about grants and the process and how NIH works. And there's a lot there if you're interested in hearing instead of reading about how NIH works. So first is the All About Grants podcast. You can, Google this pretty easily, but again, I will find it and I'll put it in the chat. It goes over a range of topics. So in that bar across your screen, you could see the different categories. Within each category, there are multiple podcasts that pertain to these topics, from preparing to apply to post-award activities, and then special programs that NIH runs. And then the other one is the Building Up the Nerve podcast that NINDS has produced. And this one also goes through the grants process, but gets into some additional topics around mentoring. And you see season 4 coming soon will be about the hidden curriculum of a biomedical career. So these are interviews and information from NIH staff, but also other researchers, investigators, those who've gotten grants or are mentors. So it's both really excellent resources if you just want to understand more about the entire biomedical research enterprise and process. So I'll turn it back to Dr. Donaldson to wrap up.
Thank you. I want to thank all of our presenters today, Lauren, Ashley, and Kenny, for their time and sharing their knowledge and sharing some resources with the audience today. I know that it's been a lot of information over this first day of the Grants Conference event, so we really appreciate you. And now we want to switch to moving into the Q&A portion of the session. So if you haven't had the time to submit your question, please submit your questions in the Q&A box. I will start with a question from the audience. And additionally, if there's a question that's posted there that is relevant to your situation, please make sure to upvote the question. So let's go into here. And so the first question that has the most upvotes right now is the question about the roadblocks, and it just moved. So what are some of the biggest hurdles, roadblocks that you've seen as for first time investigators, for those who are applying for the grants the first time? And anybody, I guess, could answer that one. Should call on somebody. How about Kenny?
Sure. I think a lot of hurdles. So one, going back to the big points I made earlier, not reaching out with enough time, because the day of, the week of, or the week before are not appropriate times to reach out about the application. It's not that it might not be too late to get some quick pointers, but if you want to have some deep and formative developmental feedback, often reaching out a few months ahead of time is helpful. Being mindful that we have rather large portfolios and numbers of folks to deal with. I would also say not fully reading the FOA and the review criteria, because that is how you will be evaluated. And so what I often tell applicants is to ensure that you can answer each of those questions, yes, in a clear and compelling manner, and that it's easy for the reviewers to find that information so they don't have to hunt for it. Sometimes you're so enthralled with the idea that you don't take the step back to put yourself in the mind of a reviewer. I'll pass over to my colleagues, Lauren and Ashley, if they have any additional thoughts.
I guess, yeah, I think getting that point you made about stepping back and getting feedback from other people about your grant, and that means finishing the grant before the deadline so you have time to get the feedback. But a lot of times I see, that applicants get their summary statement back and they're like, but I said this. Why are the reviewers saying I didn't say this? And then you go back to the actual grant and it's not clear, right? And it's reviewers can't read your mind, and they don't know what you don't tell them very explicitly. And the other thing, I'll just reiterate another point you made, Kenny, which is resubmission. So a lot of times I see new investigators, they submit one grant, it doesn't get discussed, and then they are like, give up, move on to the next idea. But a lot of these grants, these R01s, I see them being funded on the second, third, sometimes even the fourth try. And so it's important to talk to the program officer, see, do they have any insight? Is it going to the right study section? Is it going to the right institute? Do you need to change your aims a little bit? There's a lot of tweaking that can be done, and not just give up and throw it away and start over.
I'll add one more, actually, which is sort of applying so much that you don't take the time to get the feedback. I know that there are different institution types where there's different types of pressure. In my experience, the PIs who apply every round tend to be less successful than the ones who take the time to reflect and put in, one solid proposal a year or two, recognizing that people have different types of pressure to deal with. But that's just to piggyback on Lauren's point.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on to the next question. Eduardo asks, could you please discuss the early career reviewer program in more detail? Is the program done as a summer institute, virtual over a period of time, hybrid? Thank you again for your time and help.
So I'd really encourage you to go to the website for more information and contact the NIH contacts available there. Through the program, you would serve as a reviewer on a study section. So it's not like a training program. You are on the review committee. There are resources to train you, but you will be reviewing applications as part of the grant review process. And this could be done in person or virtually, depending on how the study section is organized for the section that you're assigned to. And that will depend also on your expertise and what you think the appropriate scientific fit is for you to review applications.
Thank you. So another question, how would ESI and NI, new investigators, be approached differently in the study section review and funding decisions? So I guess what's the distinction between how ESIs and NIs are evaluated in study section?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So it's my understanding that in study section, the ESIs are all discussed at the top together, and then the other applications are discussed. So reviewers are sort of oriented to the fact that these are ESIs, and so they may not have as much experience and be as well versed in the, the lingo of NIH and the way that applications are written and things like that. And then on the funding side, a lot of institutes have different pay lines for early stage investigators. So at NINDS, we'll fund 10 points beyond the pay line. We're a very pay line driven institute. And other ICs might approach it more as just giving them a second look, or being slightly more likely to fund them than otherwise. And those are the kinds of considerations that are given to ESIs.
I would also add, because I'm at a not pay line driven institute, we don't have a pay line in IGMS, but again, the idea of secondary consideration is important. A few other thoughts to be mindful of is that there are also specific funding opportunities aimed at ESIs or new investigators. So a number of the neuroscience ICs have in R1 research opportunities for new and at-risk investigators to promote workforce diversity. NIGMS has our Mirror program. We have one flavor that's just for ESIs, early stage investigators. We also allow new investigators to apply through a separate FOA announcement. So I think it's important to not just think about the consideration you get, but also identifying, are there specific funding announcements that are aimed at the population that you're a part of?
Great, thank you. Next question. So is there a mechanism that would be appropriate, as we were talking about, the right sort of funding announcement for your stage? Is there a mechanism that would be appropriate for someone who completed a PhD, 2 to 3 years of a postdoc, been in research administration for several years, but is now interested in coming back to the lab and independent funding? So someone who's been out of, the traditional lab environment and is interested in coming back.
So you might try the reentry supplement. You'd have to go do a deep dive in the FOA and see if it aligns with your particular pathway away and back to science. But if you have not been doing research for a while, the reentry supplement will fund you to work in an NIH funded lab. So that's one option.
That sounds like a great idea. There might be some K awards, because depending on their level of targeting, there might be some K awards that are appropriate. Oftentimes they're for people who've been continuously doing research at the same point. This goes to the don't self-eliminate. Talk to the program officer, say, here's my situation, right? Because all of our advice is general, but each situation is specific. And so when you speak to the person who is over those various funding announcements, they can give you a better sense of what they've seen and how to best position yourself for success.
Sorry, I'm moving through questions and I'm trying to select. This question here, assuming that your application addresses everything in the FOA, does it hurt your chances of being funded if you didn't reach out to the program officer prior to submission?
I would say no. Like, I know we encourage you to reach out. The vast majority of people don't. And so what we're saying, though, particularly for those trying to navigate the system, it's important. And oftentimes, here's a little tip. Sometimes, no matter what the score is, particularly for not pay line driven institute, sometimes we see something and we say, hey, this might warrant some additional consideration. Peer review raised a few comments. Can you please respond to those comments so we can have that information as part of consideration, right? You should always respond because a number of people don't. And so then we're left trying to make a decision. And so, yeah, you don't have to reach out. It usually is to your benefit. And again, reach out with a kind of specific ask. Here's my aims. Here's my bio sketch. Does this fit? Can we talk about that? Here's what I got from the summary statement. Can we meet to discuss this and the likelihood of funding and or what the next steps are? But I would definitely, it doesn't make you less likely to get funded if you don't reach out, I would say.
Yeah, we're not going to penalize you and say, oh, this person didn't email me. But it's more about, it's an easy way to avoid just like common mistakes that people make. So by, you might be submitting something, a clinical trial to a clinical trial not allows FOA, or you might be submitting, you know, research that is not a priority for that institute. You might be missing out on, you know, some of the review criteria that are really emphasized in review, and the program officer knows that because they've gone to review for, you know, everyone for the past 5 years. So it's these kinds of insights that you can get from the program officer, and they can kind of help you decipher things just based on their knowledge of the system.
Okay, an anonymous attendee wants to know about, they want us to provide some insight on what an ideal grant path would look like for a postdoc / early faculty researcher. The attendee mentioned that they have an F32 under review, but they're not clear when they should be submitting a K99 R00. And so what's the ideal path?
So I guess my answer would be that there's really not an ideal path because everyone's path is different. So you just need to consider what your goals are in your career trajectory and what funding opportunities there are that would help you meet those goals. So for someone who has an F32 and is looking to apply for a K99 R00, first, it's important that you recognize the period of eligibility for a K99. You cannot have generally more than 4 years of postdoctoral research experience. So you want to ensure that you get your application in on time, but also that it fits with your plans for transitioning to independence. The K99 R00, while it's a really fantastic opportunity to transition to independence, it doesn't fit everyone's timeline. Some people want additional postdoctoral training. They have one postdoc, they want to do a second postdoc to move into a new area. The K99 might not fit that kind of career path. But if you are considering the K99, make sure that you're within the eligibility period, you get your application in on time. Don't wait until the last deadline that you're eligible for, and make sure it's a strong plan for having that additional piece of mentored research training that's feasible within 1 to 2 years of the K99 portion and is going to position you to be successful on the job market when you're transitioning to the R00 phase. Now, if that doesn't seem realistic, there are other K opportunities available that you can look into. So different institutes fund different kinds of awards for different reasons. So that's why, again, like you've heard many times, you should reach out to program because we can help you with the other opportunities that may be available depending on your goals and your research area.
Thank you. We have a question on what to do if the PO assigned to the FOA that you're interested in does not answer your emails or phone calls.
Yeah, this is a great question. POs are human too. sometimes they have inboxes that are out of control. And so you can try to find somebody else at the Institute that might be, might be able to help you navigate the system. They might be able to reach out to the person and sort of poke them and say, hey, this person's trying to get in contact with you. So you can try somebody in the same sort of division that might have a resource similar, but not exactly the PO. Or it institute that will
Give it like a week for us to respond, because our job is basically answering emails. So we get a tremendous volume of emails, and sometimes it takes a while to get through them. So don't expect a response that day or the next day. Possibly you got us at a good time and we can get you a response quickly, but I would wait a week. If you still don't get a response, try again, wait another week, assuming you have this much time. Like, you should be contacting us with plenty of time. And then if you don't hear anything, as Lauren said, I think it's totally a terrific suggestion to find someone else in the Institute, or maybe you know of another program officer that your mentor has been working with that you can start with as well. So it's another way to get a response. Generally, we're not trying to ignore your emails, but sometimes they get buried.
And sometimes they go in spam filters. And so I've had to look sometimes, and I was like, oh, I didn't know this was here. Also, each institute has what's called a division for extramural activities. They oversee all the funding and usually grants making for the institute. And so if all else fails, find the director for the division of extramural activities. They're a highly positioned person who can usually move any blockages. That said, to Ashley's point, give it some time, because sometimes even on holiday weekends, people will email and then email again on a federal holiday and say, you're not responding. And it's like, we're a national institute, right? And so we have a national reach. So people from across the nation, right? Just be mindful of that in terms of timelines.
We have a few more minutes before we need to wrap up. One question that recently came in, if one has just started a tenure track position without previously receiving a K-99, is it still possible to apply for the R00, or are you no longer eligible for the R00 portion of the K-99 R00?
Yeah, you cannot apply for the R00 alone. It's a combined award, so it's not possible.
That said, a number of institutes have other early stage. So some institutes have what's called R03s, R21s. You can even apply for the R1, and at NIGMS, we have the R35 that we use for early stage investigators. So just to think about, there are lots of other options that exist. But the R00, as Ashley mentioned, is not something that you can apply for as a standalone.
So one question that came in, this is related to the early career reviewer program. Does one need to be a U.S. citizen to apply for this program, or to apply be an early career reviewer?
I'm actually not sure. I don't think you need to be a U.S. citizen, but there's a message in the chat right now, which is the email for the program. So I just encourage you to reach out to them and get the information about the eligibility and how to apply.
I'm skipping around, trying to find some more general questions. If how would one decide between, I guess, a regular K01 award versus a CATS award? Are you our panelists familiar with the CATS Award?
So NINDS doesn't participate in the CATS Award, but it's my understanding that you're supposed to submit the R01 on something that you don't have any preliminary data in. It's like you're going into a brand new field. And so that is very different than a K01. So the K01 would be to get further training to establish yourself. And generally, you don't want to be doing it on something that you have no experience in. So I think the CATS is for a very specific situation where you don't necessarily have the background or the preliminary data, and you just have this idea and you want to pursue it. And the K01 is more a career development award to hone your skills.
Yeah, and as Lauren said, the K, it's a mentored award. So you're going to have a mentor and someone working with you on the project. For the CATS Award, you should be in independence already in proposing a project that is a deviation from your background and expertise and a new direction that you don't have preliminary data on.
There's one. I'm not sure if we covered that. We kind of talked about ESIs earlier, but are there any specific institutional initiatives, for the ESIs? Generally, there's a different type of funding, or at least different type of review that goes into those who are part of the ESI, or at least a categorization where they are classed with other early investigators. But is there any other sort of programs that are specific for ESIs?
Yeah, so Kenny mentioned some that were at NIGMS.
Yeah, there's the Mirror program at NIGMS. There's CATS, there's DP2. So there are a number of different ones. And so you want to look at the FOAs, the funding opportunity announcement, see the purpose, see who's eligible, because some say you have to be an early stage investigator. I also just wanted to highlight one question that we didn't mention, but was answered in the chat to be aware of. If you're an early stage investigator, if you apply with somebody who's not an early stage investigator and that award is funded, you lose your ESI status. And so it's really important, when at all possible, to make sure you get your independent award first as an ESI before working as a multi-PI on somebody else's award. It's to your benefit to do that. And so that's just something to be aware of. Everybody on the award has to be an ESI for the ESI status to hold.
Okay, so we're actually coming up on time. So it is 5:46 p.m. And I would like to thank our panelists for, devoting some time today and answering, the variety of questions that we received. The slide with our thank you shows their email. So if you have some questions that you would like to follow up with, then please reach out to the panelists, specifically if there's a question regarding a program within their IC that they manage. And for other questions, you can also contact me for basic policy, training policy related questions. And we also have the NIH training mailbox at NIH training at nih.gov. If you have some questions on various policies related to training.